The board will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Present.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Present.
Alderman Bosley. Alderwoman Evans.
Present.
Alderwoman Hubbard.
Present.
Alderwoman Negracia. Alderman Coder.
Here.
Alderwoman Rice.
Present.
Alderman Gunther.
Here.
Alderman Balmer.
Here. Present.
Alderwoman Martin.
Present.
Alderman Grass.
Present.
Alderwoman Murphy.
Present.
Alderwoman Howard.
Present.
Alderwoman Green.
Present.
Alderman Oldenburg.
Here.
Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Todd.
Present.
Alderwoman Davis.
Present.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Present.
Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd.
Present.
Alderman Vaccaro.
Present.
Alderman Narayan.
Here.
Alderman Cone.
Alderman Cone is very much present this meeting.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Here.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Present.
Alderwoman Navarro.
Present.
President Reed.
Here.
Alderman Bosley. Alderwoman Negracia. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Muhammad. 25 present, you have quorum.
Quorum being present, we will begin today with prayer. Giving all honor to God, Almighty God, source of all authority, we humbly ask guidance in our deliberations and wisdom in our conclusions. Amen.
Amen.
We would dispense with line item 3. Any introduction of honored guests, any introduction of honored guests. Alderman from the 23rd.
As always, I would like to introduce my friend and my kind of helps me out, Greg Meyer.
Welcome, Greg.
So that's my, yeah.
Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Further introductions. Alderman from the 14th. Oh, you just wait. Any further introductions? Alderman from the 10th, like to wrap us up?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Today, September 25th, on this day in 1983, Bob Forsch pitched his second career no-hitter for the Cardinals. But more importantly, this is National One-Hit Wonder Day. And the biggest one-hit wonder in the world is Alderman Vaccaro. We all wonder about him constantly. Thank you.
He's going to get you for that.
I didn't even know I hit the one.
He's going to get you for that. Approval of the minutes.
Approval of the minutes for Friday, September 18th, 2020.
Alderman from the 22nd, you're recognized on approval of the minutes.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move for approval of the minutes dated September the 18th, 2020.
Second.
Moved by the Alderman from 22nd, seconded by Alderman from 10th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in A, B, and C of the agenda and has been placed in the Alderman mailboxes. Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for reappointment to the Developmental Disabilities Resources Commission. The reappointment of Mr. Ken Franklin, who resides in St. Louis County, whose term will expire October 1st, 2023. The reappointment of Mr. William Seedoff, who resides in the 7th Ward, whose term will expire October 1st, 2023. The reappointment of Ms. Sherry Wiebenmeyer, who resides in the 23rd Ward, term will expire October 1st, 2023. I respectfully request your approval of these appointments. Sincerely, Lyda Cruzen, Mayor.
Alderman from the 23rd, you recognize on the mayor's appointments to the Developmental Disability Resources Commission.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, I would like to move for the approval of the mayor's appointees to that commission. I don't have the paper in front of me.
All right, it's been moved by the Alderman. from the
Second.
23rd, seconded by the Alderman from the 10th. Alderwoman from the 1st.
Mr. President, members of the board, I don't know when this mayor's submission was submitted to us, but as recently as yesterday, I was at the board. I didn't have any such submission in my box because I signed the bills for today, and I still didn't get some submission. And I have a question about what the requirements are to be on the Development Disability Resource Commission. And if I was, Mr. President, I would ask if the alderman from the 23rd, I think, who's submitting these nominees would yield.
Alderman from the 23rd will yield the questions to the Alderman from the 1st.
I will, yes.
Alderman from the 1st, please proceed.
Okay, Alderman Bacall, could you tell me what are the qualifications to be on the Developmental Disabilities Resource Commission?
You know, I don't know, but I trust the mayor's appointments. I know Sherry Wibbemeyer. I know some of the appointees, and they've held positions before. So I will say no, I don't know, but I will say that I trust the mayor on this. I trust her appointees, and I know some of them. And I believe that, of course, we'll have a vote here, and I believe the majority of the people on this board will support those.
That was, so you do not, so the answer to my question is that you do not know the requirements to be on the Development Disabilities Resource Commission.
I would imagine that I could trust the mayor and her staff to put people on there that are qualified.
Well, I don't trust the mayor because on several occasions they, wait, no, because you're not answering my question. It's a simple question. It is not, do you trust the mayor? It is, do you know what the qualifications are? And if you do not, then that is the answer. You are submitting somebody to go before us in which you do not know what the qualifications to be on the very board is. I have a problem with that. I have a problem. Wait, let me finish. I have a problem because I can go to a board right now and point to people that we have on a board that are not qualified, that do not meet the requirements. We do not follow our due diligence at the Board of Aldermen, which is that we are supposed to vet these people. And when you bring people before us, especially at the last 6 months of a term of a mayor, to make them go on forever, and then we had said we were going to start sending these people to committees, then to me, even if you know them, I don't care if it's me, my husband, or my family, they should go to the committee to see if they were properly put on the committee before, because the mayor is reappointing them. So that they could have been appointed by the prior mayor who maybe did not follow the procedure. We have not been vetting the people. So mine is not, I still have the floor. So if you, okay. No, you don't. No, you have not.
Hold on for a second.
Excuse me. I do not want it to ask the alderman any further questions.
Hold on a second.
Point of order. I do not yield the floor.
Alderwoman from the 1st, please hold. Alderman from the 23rd, the Alderwoman from the 1st no longer needs you to yield for question, and you will have an opportunity. You'll have an opportunity to speak in a little bit. If you would like to be recognized, please raise your hand. Alderwoman from the 1st, please proceed. And you're no longer asking questions.
I am not.
From 23rd is no longer yielding. Please proceed.
As I was saying, when this is a reappointment, this means that a prior mayor appointed these people. It has nothing to do with if we know the people or not. The question is, what are the responsibilities and duties to be appointed to this? Do we know that the prior mayor did this? If we do not know that they were properly vetted and that they are the proper people before us, then to pass it on because we know somebody is a dereliction of our duties. And I actually do know, and is good friends with one of the people who is being nominated. That has nothing to do with, do we know what the requirements are? And did we not say that we were going to start sending these nominations to committees to be vetted to see if they fulfill the things, fulfill the requirements? So that was my question. Do we know? My other question was, when did we get these nominations? Because I picked up the mail yesterday when I was there, and I didn't have any such nomination in my box. So when did we get these? I'm sorry, if is there, Mr. President, can you answer?
No, I cannot. But if you would
Okay.
like, if you would like to be recognized a little bit later, you can. You can drop off right now and ask the clerk that, who would have that information. And then,
Yes, sir.
all right, thank you.
Yes, sir. I will separately talk to the clerk.
Okay, thank you. Alderwoman from the 11th,
Thank you, Mr. President. Permission to speak on this appointment?
please proceed.
Thank you. I just looked up on the website for the Development Disabilities Resource Commission, and just to clear this up, if anyone's interested, the qualifications are listed. The Board of Directors for the St. Louis Office for Developmental Disability Resources consists of 9 members appointed by the mayor of the city of St. Louis. Of these 9 members, 2 of them must be related by blood or marriage within the 3rd degree to a person that has a developmental disability, and at least 7 of them must reside in the city of St. Louis. This helps to ensure that there is an understanding of the needs of individuals in the city of St. Louis with a developmental disability. Board meetings are held at least 6 times a year at our office and open to the public. If you would like to attend a board meeting, please check the event calendar for dates, times, and agendas for future meetings. So just for informational purposes, that is, those are the qualifications. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alderwoman. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All right, we're moving on. It's been moved by the Alderman. It's been moved by the Alderman from 23rd. Alderwoman from the 1st.
That still did not answer my other question, which is, did we get these in our boxes? Because I did not.
And you'd have to ask the clerk that, and your executive assistant, if they put it
Okay, that's all right. First of all, I want to thank the Alderwoman from the 11th for giving us that information, because that is vital to me. My question then becomes, do we know, and I just want to speak to this, do we know if any of these people meet that qualification, or if any of the other people, when we start doing these things individually and we don't look holistically, we don't know if we're meeting the criteria. We do not know if any of these people are, I forget how much she says, to the whatever degree, by blood relative to whatever the 3rd degree, if any of these people actually do that or meet that criteria, or if any of the other board members do. If we start doing these things piecemeal without looking at them, then I'm going to first ask that it be sent to committee. And if that does not happen, where we can fully vet and see if this is what's supposed to happen. And if that does not happen, secondly, I will be voting no, not against the people personally. And I want a roll call, because I said one of them is, 2 of them actually I know very well. One of them is a good friend of mine, but that we don't know if they fit the criteria, and we, the Board of Aldermen, are not doing our due diligence if we don't find out if these people fulfill the requirements to be on these boards.
So
I have no further.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes, I'm requesting that they be sent to committee.
You making
There's a motion. No, I made a motion, and it was seconded earlier.
Alderman from the 23rd,
Okay.
please wait until I recognize you. Alderwoman from the 1st, are you making a motion that these be sent to committee? And if
I can't,
not,
because he already.
Are you asking the Alderman from the 23rd? All right, Alderman from the 23rd, she's asking, the Alderwoman from the 1st is asking if you would consider sending them to committee.
No, I think I want to move on with this.
Okay, all right,
And
thank you. Thank you. That's all. That's all. It's been moved by the Alderman from the 23rd, seconded by the Alderman from the 10th that we approve the mayor's appointments to the Developmental Disabilities Resource Commission. There's been a request for roll call. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus,
No.
Alderwoman Middlebrook. I'm sorry, Alderwoman Middlebrook. Alderman Bosley. Alderwoman Evans.
Pass.
Alderwoman Evans. Alderwoman Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Ingracia. Alderman Coder.
Aye.
Alderwoman Rice.
Aye.
Alderman Gunther.
Aye.
Alderman Valmer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Morton.
Aye.
Alderman Grass.
Aye.
Alderwoman Murphy.
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Green.
Oh, did you get it from her on your email?
Alderman Oldenburg.
Aye.
Alderman Rhodey.
Aye.
Alderman Todd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Vaccaro.
Aye.
Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Navarro.
Aye.
President Reed.
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Aye.
Alderman Bosley.
Aye.
Alderwoman Evans. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Alderwoman Evans.
Aye.
Thank you. Alderwoman Ingracia. Alderman Muhammad. 26 aye votes and 1 no vote.
By your vote, you sustain the motion of the Alderman from the 23rd and approve the mayor's appointments to the Developmental Disabilities Resource Commission.
That is the extent of report of city officials.
Dispense with line item 7. Would anyone like to take any bills off of any of our informal calendars? Would anyone like to take any bills off of any of our informal calendars? We will dispense with line items 8 through 10, first reading of board bills.
Board Bill 115, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance recommended and approved by the Airport Commission and the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the Director of Airports to provide and in the best interest of the city, the airport, and the traveling public to amend the terms of the payment obligations by the abatement of minimal annual guarantee payment obligations of airport concessionaires and abatement of permit fees for certain for hire airport ground transportation operators pursuant to the 4-month abatement policy attached hereto and contained an emergency clause. Board Bill 116, sponsored by Alderwoman Spencer, an ordinance approving the redevelopment plan dated April 21st, 2020 for the 3712 and 3716 Nebraska, 3717, 3719, 3728, 3729, and 3730 Oregon Avenue area. Board Bill 117, the number was not used this session. Board Bill 118, sponsored by Alderwoman Murphy, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, wherein the Board of Aldermen authorizes the receipt and of appropriates funds awarded under the Community Development Block Grant Program relating to the COVID-19 pandemic and the need for temporary financial assistance for rental payments and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 119, sponsored by Alderman Boyd, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, wherein the Board of Aldermen authorizes the receipt of and appropriates funds awarded under the Missouri Department of Higher Education and Workforce Development Dislocated Workers National Emergency WIOA grant relating to the COVID-19 pandemic and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 120, sponsored by Alderwoman Middlebrook, an ordinance amending ordinance number 69381, authorizing the execution of a First Amendment to said Mary Meacham lease in order to temporarily reduce the land and improvements in order that the city may lease the relinquished space to Walsh Construction Company as selected by Terminal Railroad Association of St. Louis for Walsh rebuilding the Merchants Bridge, authorizing said Mary Meacham lease to be restored to its original area without the relinquished space upon completion of Walsh rebuilding, authorizing other matters with respect hereto and containing the severability clause. Board Bill 121, sponsored by Alderwoman Middlebrook, an ordinance amending ordinance number 68573, which ordinance relates to a lease dated June 22nd, 2010, between the City of St. Louis, Missouri, and the Terminal Railroad Association and Illinois Corporation, authorizing the execution of a First Amendment to lease agreement between the city and leasee under certain terms and conditions for a period of 5 years, with 2 5-year mutual options for certain land at or near Madison Street to the north and Mound Street to the south, and containing the severability clause. Board Bill 122, sponsored by Alderwoman Middlebrook, an ordinance amending ordinance number 68574, which ordinance relates to an original lease agreement dated April 17, 2020, between the City of St. Louis, Missouri, and Lease Clark Marine, Inc., a Missouri corporation as assigned by SCF Lewis and Clark Terminals, a Delaware limited liability company, authorizing the execution of a First Amendment to a lease agreement between the city and leasee under certain terms and conditions for a period of 5 years, with 2 5-year mutual options for a certain land and mooring rights at or near Tyler Street, and containing the severability clause. That is the extent of first reading of board bills.
Reference to committee.
To the Transportation and Commerce Committee, Board Bill 115, 120, 121, and 122. To Neighborhood Development, Board Bill 116, and to the Coronavirus Special Committee, Board Bills 118 and 119. That is the extent of reference to committee.
Second reading.
The following board bill was reported out of Coronavirus Special Committee with a due pass recommendation. Board Bill 70, sponsored by Alderman Boyd, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, wherein the Board of Aldermen authorizes the receipt of and appropriates funds awarded under the Emergency Solutions Grant Program of the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Missouri Secretary of State's Assistance to Local Election Authorities COVID-19 Grant Program, the Department of Health and Human Services Relief Fund, and all relating to the COVID-19 pandemic and containing an emergency clause. That is the extent of second reading report of standing committees.
We will dispense with line item 14, perfection consent.
Board Bill 86, sponsored by Alderwoman Howard, an ordinance to regulate employer and employee working relationships between the City of St. Louis and all employees under the classified service, including the compensation plan, terms and conditions of employment, benefits, leaves of absence, and authorization for a deferred compensation plan, allocating certain other employees to a grade with rate, amending section 16A, 16B, 16C, and 16D of ordinance 71099. The provisions of the section contained in this ordinance shall be effective with the start of the first pay period following the approval by the mayor. That is the extent of perfection consent calendar.
Alderwoman from the first, your hands raised.
Yes, Mr. President, I request that Board Bill 86 be taken off the perfection consent calendar and put on the regular calendar, perfection calendar.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Place Board Bill 86 on the regular perfection calendar.
So noted.
Alderwoman from the 13th.
Yes, President, members of the board, I feel that we would be remiss if we did not stop deliberations for a moment in favor of having a moment of silence for the passing of Chief Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yeah, we'll take that up at the very end of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. I meant to bring it up at the beginning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. There isn't any further bills on perfection consent calendar, board bills for perfection.
Board Bill 86, sponsored by Alderwoman Howard, an ordinance to regulate employer and employee working relationships between the city of St. Louis and all employees under the classified service, including the compensation plan, terms and conditions of employment, benefits, leaves of absence, and authorization for a deferred compensation plan, allocating certain other employees to a grade with rate, and amending section 16A, 16B, 16C, and 16D of Ordinance 71099. The provisions of this section contained in this ordinance shall be effective with the start of the first pay period following approval by the mayor.
Alderman from the 14th, you recognize on the perfection of board bill number 86.
Yes, Mr. President, I would like the members of the board to approve Board Bill 86. This board bill,
Just make the motion for perfection.
make the motion for approval of perfection of Board Bill 86.
Moved by the Alderman from the 14th, entertain a second on that motion.
I'll second that.
Seconded by the Alderman from the 23rd and Alderman from the 13th. Please proceed, Alderman from the 14th.
This board bill puts into legislation the Juneteenth holiday for all civil service employees, and makes compensation plan for those that may not be able to participate, and gives them remuneration if they are not able to take advantage of that holiday.
Alderman from the 1st.
Yes, Mr. President, if the Alderwoman from the 14th would yield. I just had a question. I wasn't opposed to this.
Alderman from the 14th, will you yield to the Alderman from the 1st?
Of course.
Alderman from the 1st, please proceed.
Alderwoman, so there are some people that because of their work schedule, they're not able to take advantage of certain holidays. Is that what happened?
No. This is to put into the working agreement for civil service employees, the Juneteenth holiday that was not there before.
Right. I understand that, but I thought I heard you say that, and if they couldn't take advantage of it, that they would get paid. So that's what I was asking you.
There's compensation defined depending on what their assignment is and where they're located, so it defines each, yeah. So
that's what I was just making.
They would be assigned to say they're a police officer or they're, whatever their assignment is, what a critical where they do not have regular holidays, there's compensation included in that, as there is.
So they can either, if they want to, this is just a question. I'm just trying. So instead of getting paid, if they wanted to, could they take the time off at a different time, or do they just have to get paid? Do you know?
It depends on what their assignment is. And it's all defined in the bill. It depends on what department, what area they work in, and who they're assigned to. It comes out different for each particular assignment. I mean, some are the same, no doubt. But what I'm saying is that if there certain areas may have different ways of compensating people for a holiday.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions, Mr. President.
Right. Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 14th, you recognize to close.
At this time, I again would reiterate my motion and ask for approval of the board.
Okay. It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderman from 23rd, 13th, and the 27th, that we perfect board bill number 86. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That is the extent of board bills for perfection.
Third reading consent.
Board Bill 91.
Alderman from the 22nd, you recognize on the motion for the third reading consent calendar.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move for adoption of the third reading consent calendar.
Moved by the Alderman from the 22nd. Seconded by the Alderman from the 10th. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus,
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook,
Aye.
Alderman Bosley,
Aye.
Alderwoman Evans,
Aye.
Alderwoman Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Negracia,
Aye.
Alderman Coder,
Aye.
Alderwoman Rice,
Aye.
Alderman Gunther,
Aye.
Alderman Balmer,
Aye.
Alderwoman Martin.
Aye.
Alderwoman Grass,
Aye.
Alderwoman Murphy,
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Green,
Aye.
Alderman Oldenburg,
Aye.
Alderman Rhodey,
Aye.
Alderman Todd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis,
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer,
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad, Alderman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderman Vaccaro,
Aye.
Alderman Ryan,
Aye.
Alderman Cone,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Navarro,
Aye.
President Reed,
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad. 28 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion, Alderman, from the 22nd and third read and finally passed the aforementioned bill.
That is the extent of third reading consent calendar.
Third reading, report of engrossments.
Board Bill 77 as amended, sponsored by Alderman Muhammad and Alderman Vaccaro, an ordinance submitting to the qualified voters of the City of St. Louis a proposed amendment to the Charter of the City of St. Louis to maintain a Board of Aldermen as a body of 28 aldermen representing 28 wards and preventing its reduction beginning December 31st, 2021 to a body of 14 aldermen representing 14 wards as called for under Article 1 of Section 3 of the City of St. Louis Charter, providing for an election to be held for the voting on the proposed amendment and the manner of voting, and for the publication, certification, deposit, and recording of this ordinance, and containing an emergency clause.
Madam Clerk, at the request of the primary sponsor, please place Board Bill 77 as amended on the third reading informal calendar.
So noted. That is the extent of third reading report of engrossment.
Report of enrollment.
Board Bill 91.
All other business being suspended, the president shall in open session affix his signature hereto to the end that these may become law. Alderwoman from the 19th, you recognize on the motion for the courtesy resolutions calendar.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I move that we adopt our courtesy resolution calendar.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 19th,
Second.
seconded by the Alderman from the 10th. Any discussion? Alderman from the first.
Mr. President, members of the board, I request that my name be added to both resolutions 47 and 48.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Add the Alderwoman from the first to both resolutions 47 and 48. Alderman from the 9th.
Mr. President, I would also like to ask that my name be added to resolution 47.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Add the Alderman from the 9th name to resolution number 47. Any further?
Mr. President,
Alderman from the 24th.
could my name also be added to resolution 47?
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Would someone like to make?
Mr. President.
I would like to make a motion to make both of these resolutions in bank.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th and seconded, I believe, by the Alderman from the 24th and the 9th, that we make both resolutions 47 and 48 in bank. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Resolutions 47 and 48 should be adopted in bank. Alderwoman from the 19th. It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 19th, seconded by the Alderman from the 10th, that we adopt our courtesies resolutions calendar as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. First reading of resolutions.
We have none.
Second reading.
Resolution 46, sponsored by Alderman Vaccaro, supporting de-escalation programming for the city of St. Louis.
Alderman from the 23rd, you recognize on this second reading of resolution 46.
Can I have the clerk read that so everybody listens and understands what it is?
Madam Clerk, could you please read resolution 46?
Resolution 46, supporting the de-escalation programming for the city of St. Louis. Whereas for some time, this honorable board of the Aldermen of the city of St. Louis has been acutely aware of the ongoing and at times escalating violence in the city of St. Louis. Whereas this board has ongoing supported and still supports the city police having all the necessary tools, equipment, staffing program, and supplies it needs to enforce the law in a humane, community-sensitive, professional, and equitable manner. Whereas policing and related offices are a significant portion of the annual budget of the city of St. Louis, and whereas most academic report and analysts of the reasons for crime show that there are clear, identifiable, and significant indicators that are present in communities ravaged by violence, and policing alone cannot address and are not designed to address. And whereas this board is aware that police are oftentimes called to perform duties upon the scope of their work and training, leaving them open to unfair criticism, attacks, and ridicule. And whereas this board has through the passage of various types, forms, and kinds of legislation in words and writings shown after year and year, it vehemently opposes violence and strongly supports the efforts of police to keep the peace that are fair-minded and not steeped in a discrimination, disenfranchisement, violation of civil liberties, and inequality. And whereas this board supports good policing and police officers and the de-escalation of violence, and realize that this best happens when there is overall coordination and application of many types of city and community services that complement and support the community and the workings of the police. And whereas this board has not taken a position supporting the funding of the police, but does realize that policing alone cannot solve the growing violence in our city, and that additional funding for programming for de-escalation of violence must be found and allocated while not crippling the ability of the city police department to do its work. And whereas programming for de-escalation of violence and addressing the indicators of crime must become a priority for the city of St. Louis if it's to be a safe and equitable place to live and truly improve itself for all its citizens to enjoy and prosper. Now, therefore, let it be resolved by the Board of Aldermen of the city of St. Louis that we stand in support of good community policing and police officers, and that we recommit ourselves to working to end violence in the city, and urge all city offices and officials to also make it a priority to join with this board to do all that we can towards the escalation of violence in the city and coordinated and organized approach, that we also address and help eliminate the underlying reasons for violence. We further direct the clerk of this board to send a copy of this resolution to those deemed appropriate by its sponsor. Introduced the 28th day of September by the Honorable Joseph Vaccaro, 23rd Alderman.
Alderman from the 23rd, please proceed.
So it's a very simple, well thought out resolution. So now I'll try and do it again without being disrupted by, so it's a very well thought out resolution. It says that the board has not taken any action to defund the police And it seems to me that a lot of people are saying, why are you guys trying to defund the police? It also says that we want to support things like cure violence, like Board Bill 114 that helps pay, excuse me, helps pay witnesses if they actually get a conviction. It says that it would be good to add social workers to the department to go out with police. But it says just a simple act of defunding the police. We have not taken it up. And I can tell you personally, I am not for defunding the police. I would ask support of this resolution. If you want to do it by a roll call, I'm fine with that. But we can't just keep telling these guys that you're all corrupt, you're all horrible, we hate you, we want to defund you. It's time that we stand behind our police department, give them the necessary tools, provide everything we need to make things better in the city of St. Louis. Yes, we need social workers. Yes, we need cure violence. Yes, all these programs are good, but we also need enforcement. I don't know any alderman that hasn't called to say, gee, you know what? There's too much speeding in my neighborhood, or we want more police. I have not found an alderman yet that has called and said, gee, I don't want the police in my neighborhood. And maybe I'm wrong. And if anybody doesn't want the police in their neighborhood, please send them to mine because I could use them. So I would ask that we pass this through the full board. And if someone wants to do it by roll call, I'm certainly fine with that.
All right.
And other than that, that's really all I have to say.
All right. Thank you. Alderwoman from the 14th.
Oh, I don't have my hand up. I didn't take it down from last time. I'm fine.
Okay. Alderwoman from the 1st.
Mr. President, members of the board, first of all, I do request a roll call. There are parts of this resolution that are great, are good. There are other parts of this resolution that I totally disagree with and seems to be a cover for the actions of the police. And those are the parts that I cannot vote for. When we start talking about communities ravaged by violence that policing alone cannot address and are not designed to address, a lot of what we're talking about is that comes from systemic racism that starts from room 200 and this board of aldermen. They're not ravaged by violence. We don't talk about any place in here about the police that put violence upon my community. That when the police shoot people in the back, when the people shoot unarmed Black people. To me, bringing this resolution at this time is like a cover for many of the ills that we get very upset with the police. So for me, this is not about supporting de-escalating program for the city. It is about saying, well, those poor policemen, we're not treating them right. They don't treat people right. There is not any unfair criticism of the police. We are not a police state. There is very fair criticism of the police. In these last few years, we've watched the police gas our communities, treat people unfairly in our communities. I'm talking about even some of the people who sit at the board of aldermen with us when they were out peacefully protesting. They were gassed, pepper sprayed, and everything else. They did it to the members of the press. That's fair criticism. That's not unfair criticism. You cannot take away the rights of the citizens. We cannot become a police state because we don't like people's action. So for me, when we start talking about violence, we got to also include the police violence against communities. The police insistence that they live outside our community to the point where they go around us, the members of the board of aldermen, and even go around an upcoming vote and go to a Republican governor with the mayor to lobby to override the charter of the board of aldermen. There's a real simple way we can de-escalate the people who don't want to live in our community. They can get off the border, they can get off the police, they can go live where they want to, and they also can get paid where they live. So if they don't want to be criticized, if they don't want to be talked about, then there's a lot of things the police are doing wrong that they should not do. Yes, people want people in their, they want the police in their community. I do too. I don't know how it is that the police are right over here in one of my neighborhoods, but I never see them. They never do community policing in my community. but I can see them still today, even though Culpeper's is gone. Every day that I leave City Hall and I come down Forest Park and I drive down Euclid, I can see one of the 5th District's vans sitting right there at that corner of where Culpeper's used to be. And it's so funny because I made my complaint to the police. I made my complaint to the public safety director. I made my complaint to the to the police chief. And the chief said to me, it's funny you say that because one of the Southside aldermen said the same thing. Now, we didn't get together to say that. It's not funny we say that. It's because we're not getting even policing. Policing doesn't begin with just the violence. The community policing that I heard about from years ago and that I used to see much more than I see now was that people were in the communities. They drove through the communities. They walked through the communities. They bicycled through the communities. They didn't wait for it to get to be a violent act before we got policing. Of course, people speed through our communities because we don't ever see any police officers sitting on any of those streets anymore, even writing traffic tickets. I can give you an example of how things have worked out in the county. Up on Natural Bridge in Velda City, they used to have a stop where they would stop you on Natural Bridge and ask you for your driver's license to prove that you had insurance and also to run your license plate because you had tickets. And they did it for years. So much so that I still don't like to drive on that part of Natural Bridge, not because I had anything that was wrong. I just didn't want to go through that. So I go around that part so I won't have to get caught up in one of those things because I had my insurance. I had no tickets. But it's still, they were policing in their community and slowing people down. I do not see that. I had the occasion in the last few weeks, in the last few days to sit on Natural Bridge and to sit on Kings Highway. It is ridiculous how they speed. But what I didn't see is a police officer. I didn't see anybody sitting there. Since we know they speed once in a while, why don't we have them sitting on the streets? And again, the station is right around the corner from where I was sitting. The only time I saw the police officers was zooming down Union to get to the Central West End. So I am certainly not agreeing with this open to unfair criticism. I think it is very fair criticism. I also do not agree with supports the efforts of the police to keep the peace that are fair-minded and not steeped in in discrimination, disenfranchisement, violation of civil liberties and inequities. What does this mean? Okay, if this means you don't shoot people in the back, you don't shoot people because they have a drug deal, that you stop being the judge, and the prosecutor and the executioner, then I do agree with that. But if this means, oh, poor them, they're being taken advantage of, they are not being taken advantage of. They are the police. When they take this job, it's always interesting to me how we justify things as the police do. But when teachers ask for more money, people say, well, they knew how much money they got when they went to teach. I think there are a lot of people now who have had to teach their own children in homeschool that I'm hoping that they have a better adjustment to what teachers do. We give much more justifiable reasons for police officers to kill people than we do for why teachers should get paid more money, which they really should. Now, those are true heroes and should make a lot more money. Here to say we must find ways to allocate money without defunding the police. First of all, that never meant we wouldn't try to fund the police at a reasonable manner. But ever since I've been here, and I didn't understand this, but this goes back to when Tom Villa took the budget from Geraldine Osborne, when Stephen Conway and I were young alder people. We were all, we're for the police, they should get more money. And so we were just appalled when Tom Villa took the bill away because it was his bill and it was the budget, because he and the current mayor, which was then Ben Shamos, said it was too much money for the police. We couldn't imagine that. Go forward 30 years, we put way too much of our budget into the police, and it doesn't work. So when people say, the young people, which I am learning to hear what they say better and better, When they're talking about defunding the police, they're saying we only have a certain amount of budget, and all of it cannot, that great amount that we put into the budget cannot continue to go into the police like that. It's not working. You're not patrolling communities fairly. So we now need to take part of that funding and put someplace else. And instead of just saying, we can fund the police, we can use that to build up communities, to do development in communities. That's what defunding the police is about. It's about not having such a large, substantial portion of your budget go to the police who don't want to police us, who don't want to be held to any kind of standard, who don't want to live around us, who don't want to be part of the solution, who want to be part of the problem, who want to run from the community and think that they're better than the community, and that somehow they're above having to follow the rules that we ourselves have to follow under the charter. They've been granted an exemption that all of us here have to follow about residency. Not only do we have to reside in the city, we have to reside in our ward. So if we live across the street from a different ward, we can't move across the street because that's part of our charter. But the police don't believe that they have to do that. So I do believe that we should start to defund the police, not in take all of the money, but be careful in how much we spend on the police, set a certain amount, and then we start doing something else with those other parts of the money. When we start talking about community policing, I'm begging to see community policing again. And that doesn't mean we keep coming back with new bonding. We have done so many bond issues for public safety. I want to say 12, 15 since I've been here. And then we come back more and more, and we need more money. And we never get to the point where we feel we're taxing the people enough. We just come along and say, we got to find more money. We got to find more money. We got to fund the police more. We got to fund the public safety people more. But it's not working. I do not want to take the blame away from the police, from the things they're doing wrong. And I do not want to blame the police for the things they're doing right. I have always, up to this point, been a police person, but their action in these last couple of years does not allow me to defend the police as, oh, the police could never be wrong. They're wrong often, and they need to be retrained. And that needs to come from the top. That needs to come from legislation from the Board of Aldermen. That needs to come from the mayor's office. There needs to be a collective voice saying the things that you are doing, not only in St. Louis, because we had it in St. Louis, but across the United States is not correct. We need to change all those things that give them qualified immunity, that says that a police officer's life is more important than anybody else's life. When a police officer says, I'm doing everything I can to go home, I want them to go home all the time. But if you do everything you can to go home and you kill other people because I thought that pen they had in their hand was a gun, then you are shifting the burden of what's supposed to happen as being a police. Everyday citizens are not taking the burden that they get shot by the police because they have a pen, or because they're in a store with a gun, or because they have a BB gun. Those are the police making horrible decisions about shooting and killing people. And then we have all of these people justifying it about, well, they should have done this. I've listened to us justify for years and years, starting with, I wish we had tape. I wish we had audio. The more we get things, the more they come with something else, to now it is uncomfortable for Black people to be in their bed sleeping. I am Miss Taylor. I am Miss Taylor. I am her. I am her. I am Miss Taylor. I am Miss Taylor in my bed sleeping, where the police can come in with a no-knock warrant and kill me dead. That's who I am. Many of us are Miss Taylor. And so when I hear these things coming forth right now, I think it's insensitive to be bringing this right now as though the police are being picked on. And I do not believe that the real reason that this is being brought forward is about de-escalating. It is about that we want to cover and say the police are being treated wrongly. And it's about time, as the Alderman from the 23rd said, we support our police. We have been supporting our police. I was supporting it before all of you have been here, except for the Alderman from the 17th. And as I said before, now as I'm in the last years of my being on the Board of Aldermen, I now see the wisdom of what Tom Villa, being the president of the board, and former Mayor Shaver was talking about our police budget. As a new person, I didn't understand that. I just thought Well, I've always been a police person. Police say they need something. That's that they must need that. That is absolutely not true, and they were right. And that's what happens when you're young and you don't know any better. But I'm older now, and I know better, and I know we can do things differently. And I do not want to take the position of that I'm defending any of these things that the police do. And I'm not defending going out and finding more funds to throw at some program. We already can just take some of the funds from the police. They're not doing their job. They don't come to my community. People call them an hour later. Nobody shows up. So more and more I hear in my community, yeah, let's move that money someplace else. If we're not going to get the police and we can't have the private police that other people have, then let's move those funds. Let's do something differently with it. And then let's work with the police officers who want to be in the city and who want to do community policing. That's fine. Police chief and a public safety director and anybody else who believes in community policing and doesn't believe that my community only gets police when it gets to a murder. When we have a murder triangle, then we can have some policing. But other than that, if you call them about people who are drinking with open containers, they can't do anything about that. People been dumping. I had people call and they caught the people dumping and called for an hour and a half, could not get the police to come. They called me. I came, then went around the corner and there sat that police vehicle at right there by Culpeper. So that is the problem. I don't think that they're appropriately being dispersed throughout the city. I know that we had a police chief before the one we have now, a Dotson, who changed the way we did policing, who decided we were going to have the police based on the number of calls, which is ridiculous. So when I read this resolution, I see some good things about de-escalation and the police, but I also see some things that I cannot defend and vote for. And for that reason, I will be voting no on resolution 46. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Alderman from the 18th.
First of all, I would like to say that there are studies that show that more police officers do not reduce crime. For example, there was a study that said they increased the number of police by a third. They kept another group kept the police the same. In the last part of the group, the police were reduced by 1/3. They didn't show any improvement in the crime due to the number of police. What we also need to recognize is that we have police officers as well as National Guards and the military use guns. We cannot solve the problem with guns. We can only solve the police problem. So the false narrative has been created by the people who advocate more police, which we need to do a scientific study. And the only people most of the people who benefit from the more police officers are the politicians, as well as some of the people who have a conflict of interest in police officers. The only way to reduce crime is to have more jobs in poverty, have more jobs, treat people for drugs. And the study also showed that a study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association found that when empty spaces in Philadelphia were improved, there was a significant jump in mental health for nearby residents. The broken window theory says that when a community has unkept buildings, unkept vacant lots, crime increases. Broken window thesis. Broken windows in buildings or cars are symbols of that people don't care. What I'm saying is this: in our ward, we have trees, vegetation hanging over all alleys and on streets. We also have potholes that need repairing. I have people in my ward that has not had their streets repaired in more than 25 years. We also have with the COVID-19, we need to increase recreational funding, because the more a person cannot get in trouble if we do not need police doing anything if people are active in positive type activities. And that might, and finally, we also have The refuge department, for example, this week didn't even pick up the trash, so we need more. So the point I'm making is there's only a limited amount of taxpayers' money. In summary, more police officers do not decrease crime, because the job of the police is to arrest suspected people who have broken the law. So they only act and supposed to act when there's a suspect of a decrease of crime. So the main point is that we need to shift the money away from the police and shift it into other city services like drug treatment and jobs and fixing up the housing in our communities and things of that nature. And finally, so therefore we do not, I'm for, let me make it very plain, community control of police. The best example, we have another layer of police called SBD, a taxing district. So now you have not only getting more, one of the highest taxed areas probably in the state for police officers, but you also have another layer, and they get, the SBD get their police officers from, they get their police officer from the police department after they work during the day. Why can't the police just patrol? Here you're hiring police to do what police supposed to do, and they usually hire them to patrol the area. So so we are paying two sets of the same police officers twice to work after they get off from work as private police officers, and to work during the day for us as taxpayers. So absolutely, we need to defund, we need to shift defund the police. That is, shift some of the funds away from the police to prevention, as well as we are paying $30,000 to keep poverty-stricken people, mostly in drug addicts, in jail. And so if we could pay probably, and that costs $30,000 just to keep them in jail, but then the police taking them down to jail, and the other support system, administration of justice support system, is all we are paying for that. So if we eliminate poverty, which we could eliminate it by paying each person $20,000, but we pay $30,000 to keep them in jail, and we wouldn't need most of we wouldn't need half of the police we got now if we prevented crime in the first place. And after study shows us how we can prevent crime. So why are we talking about more police when we can actually eliminate the police? And those that want to live in the city, we could after we eliminate those and get I'm for community control of police. Again, I want to repeat where the citizens have a right to hire and fire the police and control them, as well as I said, I am for shifting the funds, which some people say defunding the police, and I am for defunding the police. So therefore, I will vote against this resolution, because all it does is peddle the idea that the police are the victim. The police are not the victim. The victims are the taxpayers, because for the last 50 years, we've been, some people have been promoting the fact that talking about some law and order and the police. No, it's the police. Police, the idea of the police preventing crime has been for some people has been deceptive. It has been untrue, and they know it, and it has increased our taxes, and it only benefits the career politician. It mostly benefits the career politician and those who have a vested interest in more police, and those who peddle hate. And I'm gonna use the word hate, unadulterated hate against Black people, especially, and we pay and other people and whites too, who are not safer because of more police. So Blacks or whites are not safer because we have more police. It makes us unsafe. It is teaching hate. It is giving us a false sense of security, and is robbing our tax dollars that could be used for food, shelter, clothing, medical care, housing, and many other things, where we as a city could be would be more safer, feel more safer, and we would be able to use our tax dollars for the benefit of all citizens. We would also be more healthier because we would have recreation and other things to do because of COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'll keep it short, but I do want to add a lot of the comments that the Alderwoman from the 1st and the Alderman from the 18th said today. I do have concern that this resolution is a deflection from a lot of the real issues that we do need to deal with within our police department. I think to say that we do not have corruption within our department is very misleading. You know, I wonder where the resolution was for Luther Hall, you know, the undercover black officer who other officers thought was a protester and beat, and he will never work again for the department. You know, I wonder where the resolution was for Milton Green, who was a black officer shot by other officers that came up to a scene. You know, I wonder about the justice for Officer Alex, who was shot when other officers who were supposed to be on duty were out of their jurisdiction in somebody's house, doing drugs and playing with weapons. You know, I wonder where the resolution was for the $3 million in missing overtime pay, and for the 4 officers that were brought up on felony charges for overtime fraud. And these are just things that have been in the last couple of years within our department. And they continue to be things that we overlook. And we get this conversation into this us versus them. And if we're critical at all and we're asking questions about these very real issues that are impacting people's lives within our police department, we get pegged as anti-police. I think that, you know, had we had the opportunity to vote on the city budget this past year, a city budget where 0.5% of the budget was spent on health and human services, 55% of that going into public safety, and 49% of that public safety budget, or $177 million, went into policing. Had we had the opportunity to vote on that on the floor, I think this year, because of the change in sentiment that we have seen as a result of the protests coming from George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, I think more than Alderwoman from the 1st and I would have voted no this year. I think we would have had a number of no votes on our budget because of the inordinate amount of money that we have continued to put into policing that has caused us to defund a lot of other things within our police department. And so the issues that we have are not just, you know, get a de-escalation policy or have, you know, some implicit bias training for officers. Our issues are much, much bigger, and they require that we have structural change to the way that we approach public safety. It requires that we have structural change in how we allocate our dollars in this city. It requires that we have cultural change and recognizing that, you know, just sending officers to a couple-day training that they may or may not pay attention when they're sitting there isn't enough, and it isn't what people are asking for right now. You know, I think we could say that the latest round of protests really started in 2014 with the murder of Mike Brown. And I think that we have a responsibility here in St. Louis to be national leaders around the conversation of what it looks like to have a different public safety model, because this conversation by and large started here. And to be 6 years later and still having conversations around, you know, incremental policies that, you know, we know aren't what needs to happen and aren't what folks out in the streets are asking for now, I think is highly problematic. I think we do need to move to a system where we have social workers who are handling a lot of these calls for service. But I think that they should not be within the police department. What we do not need is social workers that end up becoming police officers and have that same mindset. We need social workers to be social workers, to be showing up to get victim impact statements. We'll get better responses from victims of crime if we have somebody who's trauma informed writing those statements. We'll have a higher report rate for sexual assaults and rapes, which are reported at very, very low levels in our city if we have people who are trauma informed taking those statements. You know, we would have lower rates of drug usage if we had outreach workers engaging folks that are addicts and on our streets and engaging in petty theft because of drug seeking behavior. There are a lot of ways that we can redirect resources from the police department into a model that actually works and makes us more safe. I mean, Denver recently started a program back in April where when you call into 911, they triage the type of call that's coming in to know if you need a substance abuse counselor to show up or a mental health provider to show up or a police officer to show up. And it's been extremely successful. And that's the model that we need to be shifting toward. And so I too will be voting no on this today. We recently hit the milestone of having 200 homicides in our city, and we know that our current model is not working. And so I think rather than continuing to double down on the same talking points that we've been doubling down on for decades, it's time to start to look at a different direction. It's time to actually recognize that we do have problems within our police department. It requires difficult conversations and saying things that folks don't necessarily want to hear if we are to address these issues. But it has to be done. It has to be done for the safety of our community. And it has to be done because it's the right thing to do. Thanks.
Thank you. Alderwoman from the 11th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Permission to speak on resolution number 46.
Please proceed, Alderwoman.
Thank you. I just want to say that we spend a lot of time on these non-binding resolutions, and they're usually just to sort of, it seems to me, just to sort of send a message to constituents or groups one way or another without actually having to do the work behind it. I've had a lot of constituents ask me if I'm supporting of defunding the police. A lot of constituents think we've already had efforts that the board did defund the police. It's just not the case. This just seems kind of like a workaround from having to work on tougher policy issues. We didn't in our budget. I think someone mentioned this before, maybe Alderwoman from the 15th, our budget efforts just a few months ago didn't reflect anything really in this resolution. So I don't really know. I just find this to be empty, and I find us to spend a lot of time on this, and here I am speaking on it and qualifying it to a certain extent. But it's just kind of a workaround from tougher conversations. And I don't know if some of these, and I'm not saying the bill sponsor intended this, but they sort of seem like litmus tests sometimes. And we just, it's complicated, and we're just going to bring it down to one resolution. That's one thing. I'm almost becoming that person who just votes no on every resolution, because that seems we spend, I don't know, 30 minutes on that, and then we vote on other things in 10 minutes that actually have fiscal impact or actual policy impacts. So I'm voting no, just because I find this to just do nothing other than maybe put me up either pro-police or anti-police, or just sending a signal that we sort of care about something. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm out of things to say because the Alderwoman from the 11th pretty much covered everything that I thought was important. I do think that the issues that are brought up in this resolution are incredibly important for us to be discussing, but in the form of a resolution. I also agree that if we really cared about these things, we would be spending our city tax dollars and our budget in a much different way. And so while I appreciate the sentiment of the Alderman from the 23rd, I don't feel like it's appropriate to be asked to vote on this, just asking for me to be ridiculed for being too pro-police or too anti-police. And so, again, appreciate the sentiment from the Alderman from the 23rd, but I will be voting no on this today.
Thank you. Alderwoman from the 4th.
Thank you, President Reed. I am so moved because I received a, I guess, a letter from one of my constituents who is a high school senior, and she proposed information for police reform. And I was so moved by it because here we have a constituent that police tend to really focus on. But what I really want to say is that she's suggesting that police are supposed to be the most ethical and well-standing citizens in our country. Police officers have the specific duty to enforce the law in order to maintain public safety. Due to their important role in society, we need our officers to be further educated. Police requirements should be updated on a national level. All police should require more education than a high school diploma or GED. Officers should attend community college and receive an associate's degree at least. But most of all, she's stating that it's a police reform that I would like all of you to at least have a look at, because she's saying that by going through her reform, the benefits would be fewer lawsuits will be charged upon police scrutiny, and more people will respect police officers, especially if officers are more educated. But the conclusion is the main objective is to create a better police to community relations while acknowledging the efforts, dedication, and hard work that being a police officer entails. The betterment of police officers can also potentially spike the interest of pursuing a career in law enforcement for young people. But I'm just skimming from what she wrote. And it's something I would like for the rest of the board members to look at, because there's some validity to what she's saying. And this is a high school senior that's trying to help our community. And what an appropriate time as with Board Bill 46. And that's all I have to say.
Well, thanks, Alderwoman. Alderwoman from the 12th. You have to unmute yourself, Alderwoman.
I do it every time.
There you
Thank
go.
you, President Reed. I'd like to ask the Alderwoman from the 15th a question.
Alderwoman from the 15th, will you yield the question to the Alderwoman from the 12th?
Sure.
Alderwoman from the 12th, please proceed.
Thank you. Earlier, you said that programs have been cut because we've had to cut programs to give the police more money. Do you know what those programs are?
So year after year, we severely underfunded the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and we're actually under the designated amount that we're required to fund the Affordable Housing Trust Fund at. We've been catching up the last 2 years in paying back the fund what it was owed. But during those years, police never faced budget cuts. And it's always other places that we're looking at cutting money from or not allocating the amount of money that we need. Policing tends to always get their full allocation of what they ask for.
Okay, thank you.
Alderwoman from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. First, let me say that the resolution that is before us today, this is not the time for something like this without us doing our due diligence on putting remedy to the problem. I think we've only just barely started as far as my listening to the police chief the other day and public safety committee meeting. But I have not seen us really get into trying to dissect and apply things that could change how our city is interacting with police and community. True community policing can work, has worked in the city before, and I'm praying that we get back there. I am not going to say every police officer is bad, because they're not. The average police officer wants to do a good job, but that you have to also remember that part of the problem too is, how do you address some things that you're not qualified to address? And so all the other things that have been suggested are things that we need to put into our system so that they don't have to. And the number one thing I thought about was, and I think the Alderwoman from the 15th mentioned it, we need to go back and train people on how to report a call. Because if you call and ask for the police and you don't share with us that this is a mental patient, they don't know that. There's no way for them to dissect that information on a scene in 30 seconds to a minute. There's no way for them to know that. So there's a lot of things we can do to change the culture and the interaction of community and policing. But I don't think it's good to do a resolution like this in the midst of all this unrest, because the police department has a lot of things that we need to do and put in place, and our community needs to put in place. And so I want to make sure that we do those things. And nobody is totally, I mean, people are talking about improvement and change. People are not totally against the police department. You got some who are, but that's a very few. We just need to have it. We need to have our opportunity to make this better. And we can look around the country and we can see that cities are doing that and it's working. And we used to do it here and we need to go back to it. And I talk to a lot of police officers. I make it my business every day to try to have a conversation with one or more. And a lot of them who've been on the force like 15, 20 years, they know what community policing is. The Alderwoman from the 1st Ward in Hyde Park, she saw it working well when we had true community policing officers on the street, interacting with the residents, helping to do anything that needed to be done in that ward, getting to know families who has problems, referring them to resources. It's a better way to do this. And at this particular moment, that resolution is not going to help our police officers. It's just going to bring more problems and more disenfranchisement among the community. And this is just not the right time for it. And I hope that we can find a way for us to get to the bottom of this, work with resolution versus who's to blame and who's not. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 3rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'm not going to take up too much time. Also, I do understand this is a resolution, but I want to kind of make it clear. A lot of times we make statements with these resolutions, and they're not necessarily legally binding on a level where we have things attached to them that we have to follow on this particular note. But they most certainly say something when we vote on them as a whole and what it is that we are saying. So I think this says two things. I think we definitely most certainly support the police. Hold on, I'm sorry. Got my little one here, daycare is out. I need you to turn your little dog off. All right, sorry about that. So the intent is saying that we want to support programming that go beyond policing itself. And the de-escalation word is in this resolution more than a few times. I think number one, when we talk de-escalation, that needs to be outlined on exactly what de-escalation means. Violence in the community does not start with de-escalation from police. Police are responders. They are responding to violence. They respond to codes of conduct that have been broken by the citizens that live in the city. So they are reactionary. They're not. The job is not to be on the front end of what has happened. Our job as a community is to figure those things out, which is why we are talking about community policing and other things. So when we talk de-escalation and adding more funding to police to have more programming for de-escalation in violence within the community, I think that's the wrong way to, number one, word this and put that on them. It's more stress. Their job is not to come into the community and de-escalate the violence that exists. It's somebody else's job that lives in the community, and other programs that we are supposed to put forth that already stem in these youth's minds and other individuals who grow up in the communities to de-escalate things on their own. The police's job, once again, is to secure the community. And we want to talk about de-escalation with them and the involvement that they have with the protests that are going on. And that's totally, I think, different as far as de-escalation, police behaviors and what it is they need as far as programming to have more community relations. That is, if that is what this is gated towards, which I don't think that is what this is saying, then that's a totally different conversation. And I think, once again, like some older people have said previously, before I've spoken, that those things need to be definitely talked about by all of us. But most importantly, when we speak about adding anything to the police budget, I think the number one thing needs to be ensuring that they are paid adequately. And we can always talk about this or that, but to go out there in the county and not have to deal with the same things that you deal with here, as far as Chesterfield and other places. And of course, they have more funding, more money, things like that. But we have to make sure before we add anything to the police budget, as far as them adding things to better police the community, when we haven't figured out the problems that exist already within the community that we need to work out, they just need to be paid adequately better. We need to put programming somewhere else that has nothing to do with the police. They can't program the same people that's supposed to go and lock up. That doesn't make sense. So I just wanted to add that. With that, I support the police. I appreciate their sacrifices that they make every day, because it's not just bravery. You don't have to be brave to sacrifice, and that's just being real. A lot of them get out there every single day and they sacrifice going back to their children. The city is dangerous right now. So, I most certainly support people having an adequate wage for going to go do things like that. But when we talk about putting programming on those same people who's supposed to go out here and lock the individuals up, that does not work. We need to completely separate those things, just like separation of government and church, however we want to put that. Those things need to be looked at completely separate, and we need to go, be extensively looked at. So once again, I am not in support of this board bill. I'm not this board bill, this resolution. I'm very in support of the police and what it is that they do for the community. But these things need to be looked at adequately right now in this time frame to make sure that whatever moves we make, especially when it's a public statement, that it makes sense. And we all can go out and walk out our doors and explain to our communities and residents what it means and how it is going to affect them. Thank you.
All right. Alderman from the 24th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to keep this pretty short here. I know that, in the 24th ward here, we're overall pretty supportive of the police. That being said, I'm going to be a present vote on this resolution. I hate present as a vote, but ultimately we're not discussing policy here. We're not weighing in on policy here. This feels a whole lot more like a purity test than the enaction of policy. And things like this serve to divide our community more than it helps our community. So that being said, anyone who wants to reach out to me on any of these issues discussed in this and talk about actual policy, an actual board bill on it, I'm here for it. I would love to discuss with anyone, but I'll be present today. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the Alderman from the 23rd yield for questions?
Alderman from the 23rd will yield the questioning to the Alderman from the 6th.
Absolutely, yes.
Alderman from the 6th, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Alderman from the 23rd. Would you mind letting us know who wrote this resolution?
I did it along with the clerk. We talked about it. He helped me word it. It's a very simple bill. It says we need to do things like cure violence.
That's the only question.
Let me wait. No, I'm answering your question. I have the floor. So just listen. You asked, I'm telling you how we wrote it and who helped me write it. No police officer nor the association was involved in this resolution. I can tell you how this resolution came about. Was riding in the car with my son, who's a homicide detective, who feels like the Board of Aldermen, as well as neighbors of mine, they keep saying, why are you guys so anti-police? This was probably the most diplomatic resolution you could write. It says, we have not taken action. It doesn't say anything. It says, we have not, as a board, taken action to defund the police. It makes a statement that we have not taken action to defund the police. It says, we need to support the police, whether, like Alderman Bosley said last year, we need to have a social worker group that is in the police department. We need to give them the tools they need. We need to fund cure violence. We need to fund Board Bill 114. This sends a message. Yes, we're not against the police. It says a message that we are against all the violence going on out there. And as a board, we're going to work together, whether it's cure violence, which I get a lot of crap over. And I know this is safety, you're not supposed to. Let me finish.
Alderwoman from the 6th, please state your point of order.
Thank you. The Alderman from the 23rd does not have the floor. I asked him a question and he answered it. If you would like to.
I'm still answering the question.
Yeah,
I'm still answering the question.
Alderwoman from the 6th, did you get your answer or would
I did, thank you.
All right, Alderman from the 23rd, you'll have an opportunity to speak in a second if she's done questioning you. Please proceed, Alderwoman. I can't, you're.
I have no more questions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, Alderwoman from the 1st.
Mr. President and members of the board, I want to thank the Alderwoman from the 19th talking about community policing and what they did in Hyde Park. I really saw them do that. And then when Clarence Harmon became the police chief, he talked a lot about community policing. That's when I really start to really hear that. But I want to give a shout out to the current police chief. He used to be a major over here on Union, and we had a problem on a corner with people who wanted to sell drugs, and they kept throwing the tennis shoes over the telephone wire or whatever, the electrical wire. And this is still why I have a soft spot for the police chief. He brought a crew over to that corner and put a tent up there. And then they walked up and down like 5 or 6 streets, and they're triple streets. And they talked to everybody on those streets, the parents, the kids. That was 12 years ago. We still don't have a problem on that corner. Not a shot was fired. None of that stuff. That was community policing. They walked that street. They walked those streets. That was community policing to me. They got to know those parents. They told on the kids that needed to be told on. The parents love him to this day because of that. That is what I'm talking about. That's the community policing I grew up with in Decatur, Illinois. I knew the police. When you talk about officer friendly, I couldn't in a million years envision that I would be here having this conversation about things that the police do wrong, because the police can do no wrong for me. Okay, that's how I grew up. You're supposed to go talk to the police. If you get lost, go look for the police. The police were the answer. So even then they had social things that they did. They took little kids home. The sergeant lived around the corner from me. When I drove a car when I was 16, he went and looked for my mom, told her. I saw me driving at the Steak and Shake, and, oh, your daughter got her license. No, I was in trouble, okay? So I have a fondness for Officer Friendly, but that's not what I've seen for a lot of years now. And I first envisioned that the police didn't always tell the truth and had to accept it when I became a public defender. And I proved in my first 3 cases, the police didn't make a mistake. They were lying. They really should have got charged with perjury. I can take any of you to one of the sites right now that's in the 22nd Ward. And if I show you and tell you the facts, you will know that that was not true. And each of those defendants got not guilty in less than an hour. That was my first real time I had to face. Sometimes the police didn't tell the truth. And so, but even still, when I came to the Board of Aldermen later, I still was a pro-police. Oh, defend the police at all costs. I can't do that anymore. When you know better, you have to do better, and you should do better. So now I'm saying it's a lot of good police officers. And I still support the police, but I do not support just anything they want to do, that we have to fund them and that we're anti-police because we criticize them. If you've been married for a long time, as I have, I've been married longer than my age now, but if you know that sometimes with your spouses you disagree, that doesn't mean you anti-spouse, that means you disagree. On this board we disagree. That doesn't mean we're anti other person, we just disagree about things. With the police, it's gotten to be this litmus test, like you either with us all the way or you not. I'm not with you all the way. I'm not with anybody all the way without questions. And my duty as an elected alderperson is to do oversight and to ask questions. And when you try to force me into a corner like this, then I'm going to be against it just because I don't like this. I really do think that right at the time that Breonna Taylor's decision has come out, I think that this is very insensitive for the alderman to bring that. And I think that when he said this thing about why are you so anti-police, I think some true motives is what we're saying about what we see in this resolution is coming out, and you have a right to. And I don't talk about this, but much. But my family is military police. My family is military. A lot of them, include my own sister. But that doesn't mean I don't question the military. That doesn't mean I'm against my sister. Her 23 years in the Air Force, and my uncles, 4 of them that was in there, my many cousins that were in the various branches of the military. It means that we, as elected officials, have a right to question it. And a budget is a living, moral thing. And we have been immoral in how we have treated some of the other things at the expense of our community, making sure the police has everything. I would disagree with the alderman a little bit from the third about paying. We do pay them enough. When I got to be the chair of public employees, one of the things I did was to ask the personnel director not only about the amount of money the police made, but then I asked for what are all the benefits. So I have a chart here. And when you look at the benefits, the police are not underpaid in the city from the police in the county. In fact, they make a few dollars more because we give other benefits that are greater than some of the people get out in the county. So I disagree that we don't pay them enough. I'm much more, we don't pay teachers enough. We pay the police a lot of money. We pay the fire department a lot of money. And so would everybody like to make more? Yes, starting with the members of the Board of Aldermen who don't make any money, but okay. So this is not just about money. As I said before, I always have been supportive of the money, but I'm not supportive of some of the action. When I saw that they had actually attacked one of our members a few years ago, that was painful for me to see. They never used to do that, okay? And now they feel the need to attack anybody they want to, reporters, members, elected members of the board, their own Black police officers they attack, and then people make fun of it. The mayor was quoted as saying, oh, did they hurt your little pretty face or something? That's not funny. That is not funny. And it is a discussion truly we need to have as a whole, as an entire Board of Aldermen, about where we're headed with this. And bringing resolutions such as this at this time does not help anything at all. It just inflames and makes people feel more pain about what's going on. We don't need a resolution. When I looked at Breonna Taylor's family and the $12 million, whatever that they were settled on, that doesn't bring their daughter back. She was sleeping in her bed. When I look at all the other people, mostly Black, that have been shot by the police, and killed by the police in really situations that make no sense. When I look back at how pained we were several years ago when we had a situation here in our own city in which we were shocked when the judge had a bench trial and let the police off and then moved out the city. And everybody talked about that judge, and I'm not going to say his name because the administrative judge that actually assigned him the case is still here. That's the person we need to be talking about, not sending these resolutions out like we got to support the police. I don't have to support the police at everything they do. You don't have to support your family members, your children, or anybody else. When you think they are wrong, it is your duty as a mother, a wife, a cousin, a family member, or an elected official that you question these things. And it especially is our duty as elected officials. So, and I don't think we have to keep saying, I support the police to say, I am in disagreement with this resolution mostly. And I think that this is a bad time for you to be bringing it forth. And I think the other agenda is to make us have a litmus test of that we have to support the police. And as the sponsor said, that he hears all the time, why are you also anti-police? Because that's the police saying that. Because the police, I have never in the almost 30 years I've represented them ever heard them say, we have too much power. Whatever we give them, they want more. And they will make up things that are not true to get more power. It is on us to restrict that power. And especially now that we have the police under our control, to legislate what our values in our community are about how police interact with our citizens. And so therefore, again, I am opposed to this resolution, but I just want to caution people about saying we don't pay the police enough because, so now I'm going to get that back out and share with you all. We do pay the police enough. And if it's not enough, then we can tell them just the way we tell teachers. Oh, well, you knew how much you were going to make when you took the job. So that's what I would say to police. You are no worse or better than anybody in this city. You are a citizen of this city right now, although you're going to be allowed to move out right now, but you still should be part of the solution, not seeking to exclude yourself and be above yourself. I have always been troubled by these legislation that makes it killing a police officer something more of a criminal act than the police officer killing an innocent citizen. That is what we've gotten into this because we swung too far to the right, protecting the interests of the police at the cost of the citizens. Citizens are not only our boss, they are the boss of the police. And I don't need any litmus tests like this. And I think this is a wrongly worded resolution and done at the wrong time. And I'm hoping that either we get no votes or present votes, or that the sponsor will consider withdrawing this, because this is not a good time to have this resolution. Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I appreciate your consideration.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman from the 5th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I too am in agreement with many of my colleagues regarding this resolution. I expressed some of this concern in committee regarding the resolution. I feel that it was tremendously symbolic. We didn't have anything before saying that we were going to defund the police or that any of the stuff that this resolution mentioned, it wasn't an issue. So I felt that it was a feel-good resolution, and I'm not often in support of those. It does put you in an awkward space if you vote for it. It's like you're in favor of the police. If you don't vote for it, you're not. So I just think that at this time, with everything going on, it's something that we shouldn't be taking a vote on. I would encourage the sponsor to withdraw it as well. As a community, we are suffering some very emotional times right now in light of everything that's going on. As a body, we go above and beyond to support our police officers. You can check the majority of our voting records when it comes to police officers and how we support them every step of the way. So I feel that at this time, this resolution is not needed to simply make, I guess the intent was to make the officers feel appreciated. They know we appreciate them. Our votes display that every session that we're down here. And I know mine for the past 10 years that I've been elected. So I support the police. We all know that. And it's kind of awkward because it makes me feel like I have to keep saying it, and I really don't. I don't even have
many police constituents, but I go above and beyond to support them. But I just would encourage the sponsor to withdraw this as well. It's very somewhat insensitive at this time in light of everything that's going on in the world. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Alderman from the 13th.
Yes, President, members of the board. I just wanted to concur with the alderman from the 24th, the 11th, and now the 5th. I said, I certainly am not anti-police. I said, my husband served honorably on the police department for 37 years, and his father before him for 35, never fired a gun. So I certainly wouldn't want to be perceived as being anti-police. But I concur that the perception of this resolution seems to be very divisive, and we don't need that at this time. And perception becomes reality. And so I too will be voting present. I don't want to be perceived as being anti-police, but I do believe we must move forward with all those other programs that we were speaking of right now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 18th. Alderman from the 18th. We can't, you have to unmute yourself, Alderman from the 18th.
The voters voted, I'm for defunding the police because they take too much money from the city budget. For example, ward capital. The ward capital that the voters voted for was cut in half. Now the voters voted for ward capital, but whoever's in charge of setting the budget took it upon themselves to disrespect the wishes of the voters. They took that money that the voters had voted for ward capital, but they didn't take anything from the police department where most of the budget is. And then I need sidewalks, and my constituents have never told me to give the police or any other city employee more money. They want sidewalks fixed. They want park rangers. Here we have more money in the police budget. You could take some of that money and some of the police officers could become park rangers. Some of them could work in forestry to clean up the community. So we are saying is shift the workers. So we don't need all of those policemen taking up all of the budget when we don't have enough money. And then we ran on the, said that we needed to cut the wards in half from 28 to 14, and that was going to save money, when in reality that is going to cost more money, but we're willing to give the police more money when studies show that more money for more police officers does not make our community safer. In fact, it increases crime because we take away money from things that we could, from different things, for example, like counseling, drug treatment, and other things and services that could really reduce crime in activities like recreation and supervision, after school program during the summer programs, after school programs, just to name a few that would really make the community safer. But we give it to the police. So therefore, not only increasing the police budget, it not only doesn't prevent crime, what it actually does is increase crime because they're taking money away from social work and many other things that we could use to really prevent crime. And the last thing is that I don't want any programs to go under the police department. Those programs should be separate. We don't need officer friendly. We don't need officers working as recreational supervisors. We are doing anything. What we need to do is those who want to help the community need to come out and say, look, we need to cut the budget and shift the money to the places that are effectively make us safer. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman, wait a minute, who's next? Alderwoman of the 14th.
I would like to speak on this. I think oh, wow. I don't know why I'm foggy, but anyway. I am pro-police as I come from a family of police officers. I do believe, however, that right now this is somewhat of a distraction to us in our proceedings, and that we should probably work with the police on getting some things in effect that would help them better police. And not that they don't do a good job, but I think that as one of the people mentioned, one of my colleagues mentioned, better education. There's a lot of things to be considered. Taking all this time on a resolution that in effect does nothing, I think is really not a good way to spend our time, and that we would be better off utilizing this time to maybe meet with the police and seeing how we could reinforce their job and provide them with city services that we have in place, and come out of our silos and work together with them to provide community policing and some of the things that my colleagues have mentioned. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Further discussion? Alderman from the 23rd, you're recognized.
So, I'm getting a hint, but I'm not going to kill this resolution. I don't have a problem postponing it for 1 or 2 meetings so people could read it and understand it. What you're not understanding is it says we have not taken action against defunding the police. All of a sudden, this becomes a pro-police because nobody wants to line up with the police or whoever. They all want to say, this is about working with the police. It's a resolution that simply says, we want to work with them, that we want to fund cure violence. I get a lot of heat from people in my neighborhood saying we wasted $5 million and it's actually 7 on cure violence. Now we're going to take another $2 million and we're going to put that into programs that pay witnesses. It simply says that these are things that we should be doing and that we support these things. That defunding the police, we have not taken action on defunding the police. It simply says that we have not taken action on defunding the police. Oh my God. Now it's become a great, who helped you write this? Was the police association? You know what? No. How about I listen to my son, who's a police officer? We're losing a lot of officers that have time on. We have a very young force because they do feel disrespected. And like I said in the public safety meeting, as aldermen, how many people are saying stuff about, oh, we don't even need 14. Oh, they don't do anything anyway. They don't answer their calls. This is not a pro-police or a pro-protester or a pro-whatever. This is simply a resolution that I put together with the clerk, with nobody else's help, that simply says we need to work together with the police, with the community, with the different programs that are out there. And I'm so sorry that this Board of Aldermen rather sit there and hear that we're over 200 murders and then decide whether or not we should be all working together. With that, I will say, put this on the informal calendar. That's what everybody wants. We're going to bring this back up for a vote in 1 or 2 meetings, because if you read it, then maybe you'll understand it.
Right.
I'm so upset about this.
Thank you.
I'm still talking.
Okay. Sorry, Alderman. Please proceed. Sorry about that.
I'm upset. I am upset. Just like most of the aldermen are upset. Well, apparently not all of us, but a whole group of us are upset because they feel that we're a bunch of lazy, no good nothings, that this is some part-time job, that we don't need 28 aldermen. We don't even need 14. We don't even need 2. To me, which I'm at the end of my career, I'm burnt out on all this anyway. But where I'm at is we at some point, and this bill was not pro-police or anti-police. It was dispelling the calls that I've been getting, that I'm sure some of you have been getting, that says the Board of Aldermen is wanting to defund the police. This bill simply said, we have taken no action on defunding the police. It simply says that we should be working with the police and other groups to help the police to make things better. Having said that, we'll bring this back up. Hopefully everybody reads this and it gets a better understanding of what this bill does. And I'm so sorry that someone had to ask if the police wrote this. That seems to me to be very anti-police. And this is not an anti or pro-police bill or resolution. This was simply a resolution supporting everything we need. And if you don't believe we need to do all this stuff, I'll start voting no against all the stuff because it doesn't make good sense. I've been pushed cure violence and got people upset with me over that because they said, well, it's a waste of money. I pushed all these things through because I think it's important. We have over 200 people. We had another baby shot and killed the other night, the 200th murder. We really, I think we're about 215 or better. Where are we at on this? Why aren't we working with the police? Why aren't we putting programs in place? Why aren't we doing everything we can as a Board of Aldermen? That's what this resolution says. But if nobody cares, then why should I? With that, put it on the informal calendar. We'll bring it up in a week or two.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Place resolution 46 on the resolutions and formal calendar.
So noted. That is the extent of second reading of resolutions, committee reports, and adoptions.
Miscellaneous unfinished business.
We have none.
Announcements.
Tuesday, September 29th, personnel will have a meeting at 10 a.m. via webinar. Wednesday, September 30th, rules will have a meeting 10 a.m. via webinar. Thursday, October 1st, transportation and commerce will have a meeting 10 a.m. via webinar. Public safety will have a meeting at 1 p.m. via webinar. And Friday, October 2nd, full board meeting 10 a.m. via webinar.
All right. Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Any further announcements?
President Reed,
Yeah,
I believe there
Alderman
was a
from
request.
24.
I believe there was a request earlier to do a moment of silence for Justice Ginsburg.
Thank you, Alderman. Thank you for that. Alderwoman from the 13th, thank you for bringing that to our attention, and Alderman from 24th, thank you for bringing it up to our attention again. Please join me in a moment of silence for Chief Justice Ginsburg, who has served us just so well over all these years. And they called her the notorious, what was it? The notorious, the notorious RBG. So let's pause for a moment of silence for the notorious RBG. Thank you. Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 22nd, you recognize on the motion to excuse. It's my understanding the Alderman from the 25th isn't here today.
Yeah.
Don't do that one again. All right.
Alderman from the 21st popped in and out around 10:45. He didn't stay long.
But
I want to go ahead and make a motion to excuse the Alderman from the 21st Ward due to necessary absences.
All right. It's been moved by the Alderman from the 22nd, seconded by the Alderman from 10th. I'm giving it a pause just to see if the video pops on and he says, I'm here. So it's been moved by the Alderman from 22nd, seconded by the Alderman from the 10th. Pause.
Aye.
Yeah, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion, wait a minute, Alderman from the first. All I'm saying, Alderman first, you have to unmute yourself, Alderman.
It's too late. You already voted. I thought that the Alderman, he didn't answer roll call from the 21st.
No, he did not. He did not.
No. Okay, all right.
Alderman from the 22nd recognized on the motion to adjourn.
Sure, Mr. President, members of the board, I move to adjourn until next Friday, October the 2nd, 10 a.m.
Second.
Moved by Alderman from the 22nd, seconded by Alderman from the 25th. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion carries. We stand adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week and a good weekend.
Everybody be safe. Thank you.
Yeah, be safe.
Wear a mask.